Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another video, and as the title shows, this is going to be my monthly reading wrap-up for July. So during my TBR, since it is my birthday month, I stated I did want to pick up a couple of books that represented an aesthetic I usually gravitate towards or themes I usually like to pick up. So for the month of July, I picked 4 books that represented this, and for the most part, they all turned out pretty great. Of the 4 books, I'm probably only going to do a review for 2 of them, so I may talk a little more in depth about these books in this TBR, since I'm not going to be making a dedicated review for all of them. That first book is going to be The Last Sun by K.D. Edwards. This unfortunately was a DNF for me, and I won't end up creating a full video for it. Usually I don't mind creating a rant review book, but since I didn't finish this one all the way, and it technically wasn't the worst book that I ended up reading this year, but I still don't think I need to dedicate a whole video towards it. So I had a lot of hope for The Last Sun. It does have a pretty big cast of queer characters. The main character, Rune, he is the heir to this sun throne, and it has a big magical world with a lot of different stuff going in. The reason why I ended up not liking this too much is for a couple of reasons. For one, throughout the first half of the book, which is pretty much as far as I got, was that first 50%, is that it felt like it had way too many fight scenes for no reason. I believe when I was crafting my video, I kind of came across this idea or felt that if there was going to be a fight scene, there really should be a reason for it. It needs to develop the character, flesh out the world, or set up an event, and I feel like a lot of his didn't do that. So I feel like a lot of the fight scenes is just for fluff, and what a lot of the fight scenes honestly showed was just how good the main character is, and not in a very intriguing way. I'm not really a fan of the trope where it's like only the main character can do good things or is a competent fighter, and I feel like this book had that way too much. There's even specific scenes where even if another character did try, his magic just wasn't the right magic, and the main character did have the right magic that could defeat whatever they were doing, but it didn't really necessarily explain why his magic was better. So some things I liked about it is the main characters were pretty unapologetically blunt. The 2 main characters, Rune and his friend Brand, they definitely show how close they are with their banter, although sometimes in my opinion I feel like they just kind of bitched at each other for the sake of just being kind of edgy and quirky. It got kind of tiresome the way they kept picking at each other. And believe me, I definitely know that relationship. My book actually has that same relationship. The 2 main guys are really good friends for years, and they do have a tendency to pick on each other, but here it just over excessive, and it got kind of annoying, probably also because how aggressive it was. And it also leads me to say that they're supposed to both be, I believe, about 30, 35 or something like that, and they kind of act like 18-year-olds. A lot of reviews kind of talk about how they seem like they come right out of a fraternity or something like that. So the first part of the book starts with Rune getting an assignment from his employer to go and rescue this other famous heir that's been kidnapped. It felt like it dragged so much that by the time we end up saving him, it's already the halfway mark, and I couldn't believe that there was another 50% to go. And like I said, all these little things, since I wasn't enjoying the book, started really nitpicking at me, and I kind of knew it was probably a good time to DNF because I haven't been doing really well reading, and I didn't want to force myself to read something I knew I wasn't gonna like. This is probably a nitpick thing as well, but in general, the way he set up the book with these really, really long chapters that covered so many different things, it really ruined the flow for me. I think setting up appropriate chapter lengths works really well. I think that maybe because his chapters were titled and they might have something to do with the tarot sequence, I'm not really sure. It really threw me off how long the chapters were. It felt like I couldn't pace myself well enough because they were so large and covered multiple things. Long story short, there just wasn't a lot about this book that really kept me wanting to go. I wasn't really in a place to read a book I wasn't enjoying. But moving on from The Last Sun, we actually have 3 really great books. These were all 4 or 5-star reviews. The next book is going to be The Tyrants Tomb. This is the 4th book in the Apollo series by Rick Riordan. I won't be doing a review for this one either just because I didn't have a lot to say, but I did really like this book. I feel like what I want to praise about this book is that it really shows the maturity of Rick Riordan's series as it goes on. I don't know if he did this on purpose or not. He's supposed to be a middle grade author, but I feel like the Apollo series is kind of growing with his audience as we all grow up, because most of us were all, of course, Percy Jackson fans back probably over more than a decade ago in high school, and now we're well past college and still reading his books. And I feel like these books do really well to hold our maturity level and our attention. I can't talk about it too much, obviously, since this is the 4th book in a series that's a spin-off of another series, but if you know what I'm talking about, Apollo is our main character, the Greek god. He ends up getting stripped of his godly powers and sent on a quest to kind of like reclaim them. So this book, the main disappointment that didn't make it a 5 stars is that we still don't see Apollo fully realizing his powers. He still seems to be very affected and consumed by his past and everything that he's done wrong. But this is also really great. I hope that he solved a lot of that issues here. And in the 5th and final book, we're going to see a fully competent and confident Apollo. This book, he faced so many of his old demons and he felt so human that I'm really looking forward to him like wrapping up this book in a really satisfying way. Now that we've gotten a lot of Apollo's, I guess like his cockiness and his like godliness is almost non-existent at this point. He's very empathetic towards humans that he's pretty much just toyed around like his entire godly life, and it really showed in this book. It was very emotional and heavy mentally, and I really like that for the series. And so after the Tyrants Tomb, I ended up reading Crown of Feathers by Nikki Powell-Preto. I am really glad I finally got to this. This was a book that was been on my TBR for probably over a year. I received this in a gift box sometime like over a year ago, and I just never got around to it, which is kind of insane since phoenixes are my favorite mythological animal, and this whole book is about phoenix riders. So there's a lot to get into this book. I'm probably going to go over it really quickly since I am going to do a dedicated review, but essentially it's this whole realized fantasy world where phoenix riders used to rule this empire or kingdom. The 2 main sisters of this empire, I believe, I'm not really good on, I'm very familiar on what happens in real time in the story, but the past I'm not 100% sure on because they had all these journal entries between chapters and I didn't really 100% pay attention to them, which in hindsight I regret now, but should make for a very good reread. But anyways, I believe these 2 sisters, one of them is like the queen, they end up fighting each other, and I think that kind of destroys what they created for their empire. And so the empire basically like outlaws magic and enslaves all of the mages that can communicate and ride animals, or specifically phoenix riders. I don't think it really seems to only say that animal mages only communicate with like phoenixes. All the other animals aren't like magical, so they kind of just can control them or can communicate with them or whatever. But I feel like you can do a lot more as an animal mage than just ride a phoenix. In fact, actually some of them do. We do meet one character who I believe has like a bird companion, and that character is blind, but she can see through the bird companion. So there's actually a lot of good diverse use of their characters and magic in this that I really appreciate. So I actually ended up following 3 main characters, 3 point of views. They're each animal mages, but each one of them has a pretty significant different story. 2 of them, the main character Veronica and another one Tristan, theirs doesn't diverge too much because they're actually together in the same place, kind of going through the same things, but their backstories and their skill level is pretty different, and that's enjoyable. The 3rd one's probably my favorite. He is an animal mage, but he's actually hiding in the Empire as one of their soldiers, and that group of soldiers is actually heading towards the rebel Phoenix Riders, and their goal is obviously to kill the Phoenix Riders. That character ends up getting wrapped up in this quest to try to take down the soldiers to prevent them from killing the animal mages. So there's a lot of stuff I liked about this. I think one of my favorite parts is how there are some tropes that the author doesn't completely fall into. For instance, the main character Veronica, she is really powerful, and when she shows up to the Phoenix Riders, she's like better than everyone else, even though she is new and stuff like that, and that ends up causing a fight with Tristan, and I almost want, well, I wasn't gonna give up then, but I was gonna get really annoyed until they basically solved it in about a chapter or 2. Like, they resolved their differences and they used each other to get better instead of just fighting about it for a long time. So I really appreciated that growth and maturity. The ending, the whole last probably quarter of the book, there's a lot of reveals and intense emotion and stuff like that between like Veronica and her sister that left the ending like really impactful, and I'm really intrigued to read the 2nd book. And like I said, it also made me realize that I probably missed a lot, and I think on reread this book will be even better. So Like, kudos all around. It was really well done. The last book I read in July is Calamity. This is the third book in the Reckoner series by Brandon Sanderson. If you don't know, this series is about an event that gives all of the humans, or a lot of the humans in the world, superpowers. Accompanied with those superpowers is a darkness of sorts that basically makes all of the, what they call epics, really angry and pretty much villains. Like, every single person that has powers is a villain. And so this leads the Reckoners, a cell of normal people, to pretty much like covertly take down epics to kill them. And that's like their goal from like the first book. I obviously can't talk a lot about this third book since it is so far into the series, but I will go ahead and probably make a dedicated review if you want spoilers and stuff like that. I don't really think I want to talk about this third book specifically, but I do want to praise that it does a really great job of taking everything from the first two books and making a very emotional and impactful ending. Like, I was really immersed and invested in everything that was happening in this third book because of how well the first two books led to this. I think that's great. I know it's kind of weird to say, but sometimes I feel like series don't do a great job of making really impactful moments from book to book matter towards the end. I think this is why you want a series, is so that when you look at it as a whole, you're like, wow, this was an incredible story. Sometimes books can seem pretty episodic. It's like they take care of one thing here, and then the second book is just like a continuation of that world, and they have like a new problem or something like that. And this book doesn't do that. It's does amazing jobs to create plot points that make the whole series really great when you look at it as a whole. And that's actually it for my July TBR. That's all I ended up reading. Even though it was only 4 books, I was still really happy about everything I got to. And like I said, 2 4 stars, 1 5 stars, not bad at all. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any like comments about any of these books that I've read, or any recommendations that are books like this, because like I said, these are all themes I like to gravitate towards. So if you have any recommendations that are books like this, I'm sure I'll enjoy those as well. But thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you all next time. Bye now.